In my infancy of training, we'd recently discovered fire at this point. Baffled by honesty, how could something produce both light and heat and come from a material such as wood, at the time created by friction between two bits of... blows my mind. It still does to this day. So today's going to be slightly different. And by different I mean, if you've been around the channel for a while, it's probably not really that different. If you haven't been around for a while, it's probably going to be quite different. I'm going to talk about something new. I'm going to do a different type of video. It's going to be a top 5 video. And if you like this type of video, let me know by dropping a like on it. If we hit 120 likes on this video, I'll create another top 5 video, either following a similar subject or a different subject, depending on what you want to see. So I'm not going to waste your time. We're not going to hang around for too long. So we're going to crack on with the video and let's see how it goes. Imagine I just got a haircut and I've just ruined it to put on a hat just to show everyone that I've finished my masters now. That's literally it. I mean, I can justify wearing this hat now I've handed in my dissertation. Doesn't mean I've passed the dissertation, which means I've handed it in. So we'll start broad for the first one. And we'll talk about top 5 myths within the fitness industry. I've done a video similar to this in the past, but now we're going to update it and make it better, hopefully, because tassels and hats. Number 1, this comes from a recent video in which someone asked me about this regarding if you're hurting it, you're working it. Yeah, sure, if you're hurting the muscle while you're training, you're likely going to be working it. Realistically, if you're going through a range of motion that targets a certain muscle group, i.e. elbow extension is going to target the triceps, therefore you're going to be working the triceps to perform the movement. Just because it burns doesn't mean it's an effective movement. I could get you doing cable kickbacks, 3x10 going heavy, you're probably going to get a bit of a body pump. Doesn't mean it's going to be particularly effective, whereas if you were to do, let's say, a sumo deadlift, for example, the body pump may not be as intense, you're likely going to benefit more, or the body region is going to benefit more from doing so. Therefore, big fat body pump, juicy bum gains. Just because your muscles are burning, which could be a buildup of lactic acid, doesn't mean you're going to get sick, nasty, juicy, fat, naughty gains. Number 2, probably one of the biggest myths in the industry, probably one of the biggest mistakes in the industry, is the belief that you can tone a muscle. When toning actually refers to the constant state of tension. So the closest thing I've ever seen to a toned muscle is seeing the gym bros walking around with ILS flaring their lats and tensing harder than you can ever imagine. That's a pretty toned muscle because you know they are always under tension. I think people often refer to a toned muscle as like a layman's terms kind of thing, and realistically it means more of like a defined muscle, i.e. if someone's got good shoulder to arm separation and they're quite defined, for the general population they'll say, oh, they're quite toned, because they don't understand the difference between the constant state of tension and low body fat, potentially high muscle mass. And when fitness professionals say it, they do so because they can't really be bothered to explain the difference. From a sales perspective, it sounds better if you say, oh, let's tone a muscle, but no, you can't tone a muscle. And if anyone actually genuinely believes you can and they are a fitness professional, they need help. Number 3, a classic I heard many, many moons ago, back in my infancy of training. We'd recently discovered fire at this point. Baffled by honesty, how could something produce both light and heat and come from a material such as wood, at the time created by friction between two bits of... blows my mind. It still does to this day. But yeah, when I was into the training scene, I say as if I'm not now, but when I first got into the training scene, everyone used to say to me, oh, if you're sore, don't train your muscles. Not necessarily true. Soreness doesn't necessarily come from having an effective workout. Soreness comes from doing something potentially new, i.e. the introduction of a new stimulus. That's what really kind of encourages delayed onset of muscle soreness, so DOMS. If I've recently gone to the gym and got a sick nasty quad pump, and I go in a few days later and I say, you know what, my quads aren't quite feeling spicy, but I would definitely say they're probably borderline fruity, a citrus fruit, maybe a bit of a tang. Training the quads again, getting some blood into the area, can actually promote and speed up recovery, i.e. you're flushing things in, you feel a bit juicy afterwards, and realistically the next day you'll probably come away and say, actually, I feel a lot better than I did yesterday. So no, training when you're sore isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you're so sore you're decrepit, i.e. got legs so tender McDonald's trying to batter them, I mean, maybe don't train through that. Maybe give it another day or two, but only you know your body. Number 4, so flipping onto the nutrition kind of side of things, meal timing. In the grand scheme of things, meal timing is not as important as you think it is, especially for someone who just goes to the gym not necessarily for competitive purposes, but maybe just recreational purposes, i.e. enjoyment, to look a bit better, to get a bit fitter, feel a bit healthier. What's more important will be calories and, depending on your goals, macronutrients. Don't sweat about having to eat at certain times of the day, because that doesn't necessarily align with your lifestyle. Because if it's negatively impacting your social life because you have to eat at 9:27 and 13 seconds every other Sunday on the dot, otherwise you'll go catabolic and lose all your gains, probably not worth it. I mean, fitness is meant to enhance your life, not hinder it, and as soon as it starts doing the latter, something needs to change. Some studies do suggest that meal timing is more important, whereas in the grand scheme of things, especially for most people, unless you're looking to step on the Olympia stage, the minor degree of benefit and optimization you may get from really being quite on it with meal timing is not necessarily worth the trade-off, nor will it be particularly noticeable. So don't sweat, you look good. This is a big one actually. I say this is a big one. I mean, it's top 5. It's not even in order. They're all pretty big, to be honest, and there's a lot more than just top 5. We've got hundreds coming if you want to see them. 120 likes and they'll come your way. Spot reducing fat. A lot of people believe it. A lot of people believe that if you train a certain area of the body, you will then reduce fat in that area. i.e. if you hold a lot of fat around your thighs, the misconception is then if you train your upper legs, i.e. quads, hamstrings, etc., you will then lose fat in that area. Not true. Because if it were that easy, we could then just target where we wanted to lose fat. But realistically, fat loss is largely determined by genetics. And more often than not, the first place you gain fat is unfortunately likely going to be the last place you lose it, which for most people is going to be around the belly region, maybe the love handles, lower back a bit. It's going to hover around there. Not all the time, but for most people. Although thick thighs do indeed save lives, I would actually argue that all thighs save lives. Regardless of size, you're saving lives nonetheless. So if anyone ever comes to you and says you can lose fat around this region if you do this, i.e. body fat by doing 3x10 cable kickbacks, go heavy, I'd probably whip out a super soaker, fill that up with a bit of water and just spray. Be gone, demon. I don't need your negativity, I don't need your lies, as we say to them. Fat loss is going to be primarily determined by calories in versus calories out. Where that fat comes off is going to be largely determined by your genetics. But it will come off where you want it to come off eventually. It just may take a bit longer than expected at times. And that's it. That's the video. For the third time, I'm going to say it just to remind you, 120 likes. I'll make another one like this in the future. We keep going. We could make a series, who knows? If you have any other subjects you want me to drop my top 5 on, i.e. nutrition specific, etc., let me know in the comment section below. And until the next video, thank you for tolerating the video. If you haven't already, subscribe, comment down below, tell your friends, and I'll see you probably next week.